everybody for coming here tonight. Just a couple things. First of all, how many of you here were at Flag Day over this past Saturday? It was just a great day. I just want to take this opportunity to thank all of those who have been participating over so many years. A lot of you have sacrificed and volunteered your time, and it makes a great day like we had this past Saturday. I happened to be in Plymouth over the weekend getting a haircut, believe it or not. I know some of you think they get a haircut. But there's this family just sitting there saying, you know, we go to Salem Township every Flag Day and enjoy all the different things that go on here. And if you walk through our town just before the fireworks, you see the houses around here with the cars and parties. And it's just a good evening, something that the kids in Salem will always remember. And I sure appreciate all those that volunteer. And I know the committee needs more volunteers. Some have been doing it for years. Some are said, hey, I've had enough, and we really need some new people to come alongside. So Cal Lachlan and that whole board, we appreciate your service and look forward to it for next year. Also tonight, we want to recognize a couple people. About a year ago, a gentleman came into my office after I took office here and talked about something positive for our township to do. And it was called and he named it the Salem Township Promise. And this is scholarships to help young people in our community to help get them through school, or what we can do to assist them, people in our township. And I know he's worked hard over the past year or so to put this together. I mean, I don't even want to estimate the hours that he's put in to get this together, and now it's our opportunity to share it back to the community and report on what's going on. So tonight I'd like to have Pat and Juanita Curley to come on up here. And these are the folks that presented this. And as a board, this is just something small that we'd like to present to you. Just, Pat, that means you got to take your wife out for dinner. And, we appreciate these folks.
I'm going out for drinks tonight.
Okay. All right. But we do appreciate your service and everything that you're doing for Salem, because you know, when you think about it, I get a lot of questions over the years about, you know, charities and what do you know, where to give, and making sure that your money is going to really help people. And when you look at these folks and what they are doing, and what you know the good cause, and after they make a presentation tonight to the one that is chosen, someone in our community, and it's just a positive thing that we need to be doing. And these are the good things that I think that our town needs to be involved in. So I'm just going to give you a few minutes. You can introduce the, explain the program. You've got 2 minutes. we won't put a time on it.
The Board of Trustees for the Salem Township Promise and the Selection Committee thank all the 9 applicants that we had this year. First year, we were thrilled to death with the 9. The biggest thing that we do with the scholarship is need. This scholarship is awarded to graduating seniors who have lived all 4 years in Salem Township during their high school. Applications will be back for next year with the counselors at the high schools, probably the end of March, and they'll be here in the office for anybody that, we had one that didn't go to one of the high schools, the public high schools. He went to a Catholic high school, but still lived in the township and would, you know, met all the requirements, so we sent him here to get the applications. I think that's pretty much what we do. There's a selection committee of 6 people that go over all the applications and make the choice. And this year, the choice was Justin Chichin. Stan. He will be going to Washtenaw Community College on a $5,000 scholarship. If he so chooses to switch, he can go to a trade school and be a plumber, or, you know, whatever. It's all included. But I'd like to close
Just, when we first started this program, our thought was that we would pay for 2 years of college, meaning an associate's degree. And when you use the word associate's degree, you focus in on the community colleges, Washtenaw, Schoolcraft, Oakland, and so forth. It didn't take but a couple of weeks for us to figure out that that's not going to work. So throughout the process, we changed it. I think I changed it like 3 times. And now it's for any Salem resident, graduating senior, attending any Michigan college, community college, university, or vocational trade school. And we will pay up to 3 years, $5,000, or attaining 60 credit hours. It's based on, it's sort of a meld between Paducah, Kentucky Promise and the Kalamazoo Promise. But of course, the Kalamazoo people, they've got like 5 billionaires, and I'm not sure how many billionaires we have
Got a
here.
few in here.
But anyway, so the idea, the long-term goal is to provide at least 2 years for every Salem senior.
That's our long-term goal.
Well, that's the short-term goal. My long-term goal is to pay for 4 years. 4 years. And as long as I'm alive, all of the money, let me rephrase that, as long as I'm alive, no money will be paid to any board member for any expenses, whatever they do, they're on their own. So, anyway.
I'd like to close with a quote from Thomas Edison. "We often miss opportunity because it's dressed in overalls and looks like work." People, we've done all the work. In order to build a future and an opportunity for the Salem Township kids, we need your support. On the back table is some business cards and flyers and that. And I guess the bottom line is, people, send money. Thank you.
Great, thanks a lot. Congratulations. Okay, thanks everybody for being here tonight. Make sure your microphones are on so we can hear you. Our roll call tonight, everybody is present. Down to the approval of the agenda. I'd just like to add a couple things under board discussion. Just want to add for legal updates on a couple issues that we'll be talking about. Okay, all those, any questions? Anybody have any answers or questions on the agenda? It's all set? Okay. All right, so we have our agenda in front of us, and now tonight we want to, we're going to have a presentation from our Land Preservation Conservation Board. And I guess we'll turn it right over to Steve.
Okay, great. Well, really, tonight, I presented this before like a year ago, but these are basically the proposed rules for the property that was purchased by the township in the last year.
Just to give everybody just a little bit update, Steve, the Land Preservation Board, we have asked to help us with the 4 Tracks property, the 5 Mile and Salem Road property that the township has purchased, that there be, the rules and regulations and looking at it, how to protect it for the public use for Salem Township residents. And so that's what we've asked them to do, and so that's kind of what the presentation is here tonight. You've had some issues already at the park with people having parties around the bonfire, or having bonfires and parties out there already. And since nothing has been out there, we've had some complaints, and we're, addressing these issues. So I appreciate these folks getting this on their plate and getting this addressed.
So first things first is, this is just a layout of the property. Most of you have already seen this. The proposed rules, I've given the board copies, and I know somebody had copies, so please share. But just basically, what would be allowed and what would not be allowed on the property. So first of all, no fires, no motor vehicles of any kind, no off-road vehicles, no dumping, no alcohol or foul language, no swimming or boating, no hunting, trapping, or target shooting, no wood cutting, no camping, no radio boom boxes, and no collection of flowers and rocks and things like that. We don't want people helping themselves to driving all over and taking rocks and things like that. Allowable uses would be walking and running, bicycles, horseback riding, walking only. Fishing would be a catch and release. It's a small pond. If everybody took the fish home, it'd be fished out in just a very short time. Another allowable use would be bird watching, nature study, cross-country skiing, picnics. Dogs must be on a leash or radio control collar. Some people like to have the little radio control collars. They don't need a leash on their dog. State law, all dogs must be on a leash between April 15th and 7/15th or July 15th. That's the primary nesting season for birds. So that would have to be protected. People would have to stay on marked trails. They would have to park in the designated parking areas and stay away from adjacent residents. Leave what you find, respect the wildlife, leave no trash, and access only from dawn to dusk, and have to be quiet at all times. The second page are photos of what some parks look like in Washtenaw County. So the first photo is a picture of the parking area, and then the second photo would be a poster sign that says these are the rules on the allowable uses for the property. And then the last page would be a name, and this is the Bower Preserve, and then a shot of what the trails would look like. Right now, we have none of these. And as indicated, people, they know that the township purchased it, and they're using it at will. Some people are just using it as passive interest, but we've seen motorcycles out there, bonfires and things like that. So we need to do something there. What I guess I would propose to do is, first of all, look at the rules, give us your input. All right? Tell us what you think. Send us an email. We have a website. Send it to the Land Preservation Board. If you see something that you don't like, tell us. If you see something you want to add, let us know. All right? Another item, and I stole this from the federal government, the idea anyway, is to make a brochure. So this brochure is just an example, just something I put together. And the intention would be is these would be hanging on the board as they walk into the parking lot, and they could take it, open it up, they could put it in their pocket and say, this is what I can and can't do. And then there's a map, just a rough map on there that says this is the property lines and the boundaries and a brief description. And then we've just got some conversation around the back. And again, give me your feedback on this. Let me know what you think. Is there something in there that we're missing? I was at the Tallgrass Prairie in western Kansas, and they had these, and it was great because you could sit there and it would tell you where to look and what you could do and where the trails were, and et cetera, and it was something you could take with you. So give me your idea on this, or any thoughts or feedback. The next thing is, we looked at when we had our last meeting, is setting up trails. And we went through and we marked up on this drawing where the potentials for next projects could be. There's currently a trail that has potential right now that's currently being used by the farmers. Starts over here on Brookville Road, works its way into the back to the center of the property, cuts through the center of this field along the creek, and then back up to the house. There's also a trail, a lane that goes straight back and forth there. You can currently walk that. There's no clearance that's needed. It's open and access. That would probably be very easy if we drug a disc up through there, worked that soil, leveled it off. But we just have to come back and mark off 10 or 15 feet along there. And this would be a nice bike trail or horse trail. And it's probably a mile, 3/4 mile long. So it's a pretty good shot. Our next project would be, I'd like to see, is to extend this trail along that creek up to 5 Mile Road and bring that through. That would be a relatively easy one to do also. So right away, within a year's time, we could put a trail on with little or no investment. The next thing that we would do is establish parking areas, because right now, there are no parking areas. A really easy one right away would be up near the house. There's plenty of parking there. So propose we put a parking lot area here. Another one would be down here at the entrance where the trail would begin. Take a small area, we'd have to clear it and create a small parking area. And we talked about another one over here by the pond. Now, the nice thing about this property, and I've walked all of it a couple of times, it's well fenced. So it's hard to walk off the property by any accident. But the property does need to be posted. And the perimeter does need to be posted. We need to get some signage up there that says, this is a preserve, don't go beyond this point, and oh, by the way, no hunting, no whatever, no ATVs on this property. So signage would have to be posted on the perimeter. We also talked about future projects. These areas circled in green are what's called kettles. Those were past wetlands that had been filled in or drained through agriculture. So these could be great little projects for wildlife restoration. I know, I've walked this, they struggle to farm this every year because it just fills up with water, so little spot creates a nice basin. So that would be a nice wetland area. Just some of the ideas. The other item is cleanup. Currently, there's about 4 boats at this pond, and most of them are sunk. There's some up on the shore, but they need to go because somebody's going to try to use them, they're going to get in trouble. The other item is there's a dock out there, and the dock's fine, but it's in bad shape, and that probably needs to go. All right, so these items need to be cleaned up, but a couple of guys with the truck or two take care of that real fast. Any comments? Yes, sir.
What protects the farmer's spot on your list of goes and don'ts?
Says on there, state no trespassing in the fields when they're planted. Yes, sir.
Okay, you were talking about putting a parking lot, or parking space down there off of Brookville Road, I believe that is to the south there. Is that going to impact the local residents there at all, if you got a bunch of people running around
Well,
next to the fence?
we're going to have to talk to them about that. Again, it's just a proposal.
Parking on Brookville interrupting the local residents there.
Well, right now, they park on Brookville, so that's a danger. So we've got to give them some parking to go. I'm not talking about a large parking lot, you know, 1 to 2
I
cars,
understand.
but yeah.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to want to try and minimize that, and the one off of Salem Road shouldn't impact anyone. The only one that might be of some concern is this one here by the pond.
How many parking lots do you feel you need?
3, we're talking 3.
Why do you need 3?
Just those are primary entrances to the entrance points to the preserve. That one here, that one there, and then that one on top. Yes, ma'am.
How many acres under cultivation?
Right now, there are 236 acres full, and 148 acres that are cultivable.
The rules you're talking about, who's going to enforce those? Who's going to police it?
Well, that would have to come into our group, right, into the township and to the police. So if there's
I call the sheriff, and they don't, because that's my house right there.
Where at?
Down right there in the pond.
Okay.
My backyard.
And the sheriff probably doesn't come because.
No, you come, I called it 12:15 a.m. on Monday, and people still down there at 2 a.m. Fires loud.
Because there's no rules around it. There's nothing for the police to do.
Yeah, some of those rules definitely need to get posted by that gate.
I agree. I
And then
absolutely.
they're driving down, there's cars parked down
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
That gate needs to be maybe eliminated after it's cleaned up.
Well, yeah, I would agree. Limit some access in there.
So I talked to Deputy Gorney about that. He said you can't do anything as opposed to posting, because I called as well. You gotta have some postings for them to enforce.
Maybe.
I think there were some kids down there tonight, and they
Yeah,
got them out.
I actually stopped on my way in, and there was a couple of kids down there,
They were fishing though.
and they had a fire going.
Oh, did they?
When I came by, I wouldn't have stopped if they were just fishing, but they had a fire going, and I told them, hey, you can't have ground fires. I didn't run them off, I just said no ground fires. And I told them they drove way back up in, and I said, you need to park up near the road, but there's nothing to tell them to do that, right? So we either, one first thing I would do is if you guys agree to these rules, put them in the messenger. Send them out.
Yeah.
The next thing would be in the paper, South Line paper, this is how we're gonna use it, this is the plan.
Right.
Obviously, all this, we can't do overnight, it's not gonna happen this year, right, but we can do a little bit at a time. But one of the first things that needs to happen is the rules have to be posted, that's a priority.
Yep.
And I think potentially, if you agree, maybe we put a lock and a chain on that gate until we get this situated to avoid any future problems. That's just a thought.
The other concern I have is with that dock. I think that's a liability that's waiting to happen, and that's gotta get out of there.
It's pretty rickety.
I seen 8 people on it the other day. Jumping up, a couple of them jumping up and down.
One more related.
They're trying to break it, I mean, they're trying to break it.
Really?
The other thing I'd like you guys to consider, I have some colleagues over at Dexter who have a lot of the parks over there. And if you get real far into the center there, it gets hard to get a patient out if they get hurt. So if you've got horseback riding or even walking and stuff, they've had challenges. We don't have ATVs ourselves to get back there. So consider an ability for us to get a truck back there if we need to, for either fires or for rescue of patients.
Have you thought about restricting the property until you get some of these things implemented? I mean,
Well, right now, and they're farming it right now, so currently, there's really no access other than right here, unless they grow
Right, the
through
house.
agricultural fields.
Right.
You could drive this lane back, but I really don't see much use there. And if they do, they gotta drive by whoever's living in the house, so we're not gonna be sneaking around. Right now, it is important to get some signage up there, and, like I said, I'd probably put a lock or something, until you got a sign on that gate, just to avoid the problems that we're seeing there, because my neighbor also lives behind that pond, and he told me, he came over and told me right away about that one night they got pretty loud. So,
There's several.
so it's, if you want, we can put a lock. That's up to you. The other thing is, it needs a name. We just can't call it the Four Tracks or the Preserve, Salem Preserve. My suggestion to the board is to go to the schools and enlist the kids and offer up a U.S. savings bond for $500 and say, come up with a name. Because this actually belongs to the kids, so let them put their input in and let them name it. So that's my suggestion, or our board's suggestion, is to put up a program, and maybe that could be part of the messenger article too, in the paper, and let all the kids, high school, grade school kids, come up with a name. Because we can't just keep calling it Salem Preserve.
Right.
Any comments?
Any other questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Do we know if there are any protected species along the creek or around the wetlands?
There absolutely are. And where's your fire? Anything adjacent to wetlands is protected. Wetlands are protected. But we have 2 species that are found in Johnson Creek, and they're actually threatened. One is the red dancer, which is a small fish, and the other one is the golden seal flower. Now, the creek, the Johnson Creek is the headwaters of the Rouge River. This is a tributary that feeds into the, I think it's the southern branch of the Rouge River. This is actually very high quality water in here, and it contains a lot of healthy species. And I was actually very surprised when I read the article about it, and I've been down in the creek and the water looks pretty clean and it looks good. The only problem that it does have is there's a runoff problem right here. That's one of my future projects I've been thinking about, but there's pretty good grade, a hill drops down here and it's a deep ditch. And the water, when we get heavy rain, rolls into that ditch and all the runoff and sediment goes directly into the creek. And this creek will turn brown with mud and it fills up with silt. That can be minimized by, and you'll see it on Salem Road on the east side, is they put stone, the county does it to slow the water down, stone dams. And this stone will fill up with silt and it creates little dams that where the ground will, the soil and the silt will settle and drop down. And that seems to work out real well. So you could put these little dams all the way down along this whole length and really reduce a lot of that runoff and sediment. Part of the problem here is that there's so much runoff, no grass grows there. It just eroded all the time, and the county just keeps dumping dirt, right? And that dirt just washes downstream. So if we could establish these dams to help reduce this runoff and get some grass growing in there, you'll stop a lot of that runoff. The other item here is if you look at this area outlines where wetlands are, or actually where grassland should be restored. Currently, we farm well into a lot of these areas. If we can work and bring some of this agriculture back and restore these grasses, that's going to help preserve that creek. The Farm Service Agency has a program for restoration, and it's established a ripon buffer around wetlands. We'll actually get paid to restore that for 10 to 15 years. They'll pay so much an acre to set up a contract. You'll plant that with either cool season grass or warm season prairie grass that will establish a sod bank and help capture and stop a lot of that erosion. That's a project, something we can do in the future too. So all of this area, anything actually, all of this is eligible for a Conservation Reserve Program, CRP, where you could establish grasslands and upland grasses and restore all that and get paid for 10 to 15-year contract to do that. So that would augment any lost income from agriculture. So that's really nice. I do that on my farm. I've got a farm and I put my property in CRP and I restored a native prairie on my property. So, any questions?
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you folks a lot. You guys did a great job. I like this brochure too. It'd be nice to have something like that. Looking forward to getting that done. Okay, it's time for public comment. Come right up. How are you tonight?
Good, how about you? My name is Melinda Marion, I'm a longtime resident, Salem Township. And this evening, I would like to bring our complaint to the township that we submitted on May 6, 2014, to the zoning department to be added to tonight's record. The complaint was concerning commercial operations of LRS Landscaping at 9130 Brookville Road. I'm here to represent my family and many of the neighbors of the property located in Salem Township. I would like to submit at this time a petition to the board as well as complaint letters from the neighbors. Here is the correspondence through email that we've done so far. Here is the petition, and here are numerous complaints from the local neighbors. And I also have pictures to submit of the property in question. The issues of the complaint are that Salem Township has allowed LRS to operate on the property with no limitations, allowing non-resident and non-property owner to operate a commercial business on the site without documentation from the owner of any legal right to do so, allowing the company to operate without applications and permits to the township, operating without a site plan review or approval, disregarding performance standards and ordinances regarding noise, odor, and other impacts, operating without a transition buffer or landscaping strip, composting on the site without a permit. To date, the township has not enforced zoning restrictions on the site, even after receiving notification about LRS operating and receiving complaints over the years. We ask that the board enforce and cease operations there until this matter has been reviewed with the property, the local neighbors and property owners.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Okay, if no others, we need to take a 5-minute recess, and we'll be right back at,
No more food. No.
just a quick comment on the public comment tonight for the board members and those of you. I'm aware of this complaint. This was a complaint that was brought back to the past board and also the the zoning administrator before, the notes that are on file in the office. We have talked to the owner of the business. We have talked to both parties to come up with some kind of an understanding or what needs to be done. We have, again, we are addressing it. We are going to, we have told the person who is running the business, if this is something continue, that this is going to become some kind of a big commercial or it stays where it is. According to the ordinance, according to our zoning department, if it's something where it's a land use or a special use permit, if they want to come to the planning commission, these are the things that he could do if he chooses to do. If that goes that course, it goes to a public hearing, then the residents are notified, and the planning commission can issue that if they choose to. Again, talking to the owner this week, I'm not saying, I don't want to put any words in his mouth. I'm not saying what he's going to do, but he's either, that's his option. And so again, I appreciate your comments tonight, and we will,
Can I speak again?
go ahead.
I have more comments, because you keep referring to him. He's not the owner. He doesn't have anything legally
Okay,
on file.
well, first of all, let me just finish, and I don't mean to cut you off. This is something that our zoning department is handling. And it's his mother lives there, and he feels he's in charge of their trust and everything. I've heard the whole thing. The issue is at hand, either he has to go through the proper procedures, or if not, then we have to go the next step. And again, this issue has gone on before this board took office. Your letter indicated that this board was handling it. We never got a letter until you sent the letter to us. We were not aware of it at all. So
Okay.
nobody from the past administration gave this to us.
And that's fair.
You know,
That's
and then
fair.
also the letter also said that I knew the people. I have no idea who these people
Which
are.
came directly
And we
from-
never, you know, so what I'm saying is, if there is a solution, fine. If there isn't, then he's gonna have to go through the proper procedure. And that's what the zoning department is
And my
doing.
question would be, why is there no enforcement? We already know that he's breaking a number of ordinances. He shouldn't be there on a number of counts. Why is he not being told to cease operation? This is not his main place of business.
How long has he been doing that?
He has started to grow, and his business is
No, I'm just saying,
small.
when they started doing small business landscaping, 20 years, 15 years,
No, no.
10?
No. His,
I'm
when
just-
his,
how many
I'll tell
years?
you, in 2006, his father passed away. And in 2006, he started bringing in all the equipment and really advancing that. Before, it was a small little operation.
Right.
So it was not of concern as much.
Right.
But the minute he declared that he is going to grow it, which he has, he started composting, which is not allowed in our community from an outside private company. There's nothing being done. Where's the enforcement from our board? How long do we have to wait? I called the township to ask about the composting rules and regulations and the permit. And within an hour, he was notified, and he was calling my parents. So you seem to be working with him. He's a non-resident and a business that shouldn't be here, but you're not working with the residents of our community, and that's our concern.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, and we are working on it, it's just your opinion, but it does need to be handled, and we are addressing it. Okay, let's move on to the consent agenda. Mr. Lindsay.
I move that Salem Township approve the following consent agenda items. The minutes of the May 13, 2014 regular meeting of the Board of Trustees. The disbursements for May 2014 include the general fund check roster for $111,360.62. This includes checks 24,678 through 24,740. Also, the escrow fund, $3,740, checks 1550 through 1556. Payroll, the total payroll for May was $48,280.35. Includes the electronic funds transferred for Paycor for $186.21. We also had disbursements in the sewer fund for $6,103.02. Includes checks 1921 and 1922. We also have invoices for June out of the general fund for $70,870.92. We have the sewer fund for $8,983.87, and last out of the escrow fund for $1,773. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Mary Beth seconds. Any other questions? Comments? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the consent agenda is passed, and we'll move down to business items under Washtenaw County Law Enforcement. Mr. Trent.
Mr. Supervisor, I move that we approve the amendment of the Washtenaw County Police Services contract as attached.
Do we have a second on that?
I'll second.
TJ seconds.
Mr. Supervisor, just as some background information for this board, back in 2012, as you can see in the board package, we were offered a 4-year contract with the county for law enforcement services. This is extending the contract for years 2016 and 17. It looks like it's a minimal 1% increase for the information that's been supplied by the county. And this is part of the county working with the local police services committee to try to look at the cost of services provided for deputies throughout the county and doing their utmost to try to minimize the cost increases that we share. I recommend that we approve this amendment tonight.
Any other questions on this? Need a roll call on this?
Yes, I think we should. Dale?
Yes.
Daniels?
Yes.
Laughlin?
Yes.
Schmidt?
Yes.
Trent?
Yes.
Wensley, yes. And Whitaker?
Yes. Okay, moving on down to the road projects and local funding for the roads, which budgeted. We have 3 items before you that need to vote on tonight. The first is Dixboro Road in North Territorial, the 5 mile. We are partnering, they're also having a meeting tonight in Northfield Township to share the cost of Dixboro Road. And the cost of that is $68,250, which is, the limestone and repairing that road. The second is Beacon Lane, Peppermill Way, and Homestead. And the work project is a chip seal. The estimated cost of that is $30,000. And then the rest in our budget for this is a township-wide limestone of $25,000. As you recall, there were several projects with our road committee that we had talked about last month. Appointed the road committee. The Washtenaw County gave us a list of different projects in the township. Some paving some roads, mainly Brookville Road between North Territorial and Salem Road. There's a project there of over $500,000. There was the library, which has kind of been postponed to hear from Southland, their bypass over there, so that's kind of been postponed for that bypass there. And but anyway, this is what's before us, and this, which is a great deal to share with our township if their board agrees. I believe it's a good deal to partner with them to take care of that one road. Any questions?
Should I second?
Second?
I'll second.
Leslie seconds. Any other discussion?
Yes, are these just some of the things that were determined by the Washtenaw County Road Commission to be concerns?
Right, we had that old list of last
Yeah.
month of all the different projects that were.
That they
These
recommend?
were the 3 that are within our budget that we have this year that would be a good thing to see. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. And Mr. Wenzel.
Mr. Supervisor, I move that Salem Township approve the establishment of a separate general ledger account number for the newly acquired, we'll just call it right now, 4 Tracks property for the purpose of allocating revenue and expenses related to the ongoing lease, maintenance, and development of the property. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, any other discussions? Currently, we did receive a check for $17,000 for the farming that is done on that property, which will go into, I believe, that fund to utilize for paths or signage or what needs to be done for maintenance on that property.
Mr. Supervisor, just out of curiosity, do we know what cost center this would all get allocated to? Would it go under 285 for the Land Preservation Board, or is it going to go under 956 for other functions, or is that to be determined?
I guess that was more of an administrative, we'll probably determine that after we look at everything. Unless you have a recommendation.
Not at this juncture. I know it's a recommendation from the auditors, but I guess whatever cost center it goes to, if we're going to incur expenses, we need to make sure that we modify the budget accordingly if there's a potential impact. We're going to start expending monies to upgrade that preserved area. Just a cautionary note.
All right, that's good.
Okay. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the expenditure report has been submitted. And investment report. And we're down to the fire department.
Thank you.
Rockwell.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I have a couple things tonight that I want to go over. The first thing I wanted to go over is just our alarm calls for May. We had 29 total calls. Almost 70% of those were related to medical, and our response time was around 7 minutes. Each one of the trustees has a copy. Any questions on that? Thank you. The next thing I wanted to cover is that we've been working really hard on coming up with a design for our tanker. And I just wanted to briefly cover some of the highlights of the design, which all the board members got a draft, which is 75 pages in length. So it is very detailed. It has a lot of specifications down to some cases, the nuts and bolts. So take a look at that. If you have questions, feel free to get a hold of me. I want to thank the design team, because this was no single person that put this together. The Assistant Chief Eddie Roroff, firefighter Ryan Roselli, in conjunction with KME Dave Johnson, which is a Superior Township firefighter captain. So he's very familiar with our operations and our procedures and how we use our fire apparatuses for structure fire. So it was very insightful to have him part of the team. Real broadly, or real highlights of it, what we have is a 2,500 gallon tank in it on a commercial chassis, which is basically a standard chassis that you pull off the lot and you build the box behind it. A diesel engine, 475 horsepower at 1,700 RPMs, with a 1,500 gallon per minute pump that would accommodate more than one fire hose being deployed at a fire scene. So this truck is designed with the thought that if you look at our apparatuses, we've kept them for 20 to 25 years or longer. So we looked at building a sturdy vehicle with the thought that if this goes to your house, this could run completely on its own and not need any other support vehicles other than feeding it water. So that would give us the advantage if we had two structure fires or a truck fail, that this would give us a primary and a backup to our engine and our existing tanker. We also had some restrictions on the design, and is why we had to customize it, is because of the length of our fire station, trying to get two of our trucks to go piggyback. That is a restriction because our fire station is not big enough to take a standard size, if you will. Some of the features of it is it has a simple pump panel. It's not has a lot of devices. It's just set up for fires and putting out hoses, and not a lot of electronic stuff. Because if you realize our dirt roads and the potholes that we have, if you get electronic stuff with switches in there, you run the risk of dirt getting in there and then malfunctioning. So we're going to all manual wherever possible. They're more dependable, they break less, they're less cost for maintenance on them. We have asked for extended cab. One of the challenges we have with our existing tankers is that when we throw our firefighting gear, we're literally sitting on our laps with it. So we've asked that we have like a cab and a half so that we could throw medical gear, and we have a roll-up door, and then you have drawings with the specs. You roll up the door, you can throw it in the back, and have a seat belt, and that would be the only thing that would be in front of you when you're going to the scene. We also looked at it ergonomically. Again, ladders and the porta tank, which is basically a swimming pool that we would drop at a house fire, that allows us to put the water in there and send the tankers to go get more water while we're fighting the fire. That would be lowered by a hydraulic as opposed to having to manually lower it. So we reduce the risk of back injuries as well as clunking yourself on the head when those come down. It's pretty heavy. We're taking advantage of the newest designs and safety factors. We're looking at LED lights. If you look at our old designs with the existing systems, we almost have run two alternators because of the power demands. New LED lights are much more efficient, less power demands, and they're brighter. So, and they last longer. So again, new technology taking advantage of that. It has the latest safety features, i.e. if you're not buckled in, it's going to give you an alarm before the truck will move. It has a backup camera and arrow boards so that when you're on the freeway, it tells people to move left or right. Backup cameras, as I said, so that we reduce the risk of running over something because it's a large truck. Can't see behind yourself. It has a remote cab-mounted spotlight, so as you're aware of going down some of our dark roads at night or fog, makes it difficult to find home addresses. And then the scene lights are greatly increased with the LEDs, which will give us more peripheral scene lighting that again reduces trips, slips, or falls. The bid specification, like I said, is very detailed. It's 75 pages plus. We typically, bids are open or set out for 30 days. I would suggest maybe we send it out for 60 days to allow as many potential bidders to give us quotes on it. I would also suggest that we create a committee to score them, because there will be exceptions to what we ask for, and those need to be weighed whether they're a plus or a minus. And I would also like to have a board member, if possible, on the committee to help be part of the selection. We've set the proposal up for two types of bids. We've asked for a basic truck, and then we've asked for a second quote with all the hoses and nozzles. All of our hoses and nozzles are well past 10 years, which is the typical life. We bought our hoses basically from Northville Fire Department as secondhand, and they haven't been replaced in over 10 years. So we'd like to see that replaced with the new truck. The typical build process we can expect once we award this is about 310 days after it's awarded. There would be probably some consideration or discount if we self-financed, and all that could be negotiated. But again, our goal with the team was to look at something that's specific for a township that's going to last 20 to 30 years and will hold up to the demands. So like I said, I emailed you every township trustee a copy of this. I'm sure if you get a chance, please ask any questions, or if you got any details. Each one of the team members has a specialty. Eddie worked real heavily on the engines with his background, and Brian with his background in fire on the setups and what we wanted in configuration. So I'm really happy they put a lot of hours in this, and I think we've got a good product here to go out to bid. Is there any questions that the board may have at this time?
Yeah, Mr. Supervisor and Chief Rockwell, is this something where with what you've submitted in the email for the board to review, that we could reasonably expect that we could start pulling some triggers as early as next month to begin this process?
Yes, and I was talking to the assistant chief. The only thing I would like to add to the package, he's done some homework of truck builders to get that list to the township board, and my suggestion is we send it out to all the major builders, advertise it in the fire news to get as many potential bids in, to get as robust of a competitive bid that we can get back to the department. So it's ready to go. That's why it's got trash on there, because I wanted the board to have the opportunity to submit any comments and not feel that it was finalized.
Mr. Supervisor, I think that with the time and energy that's been invested in this process, it's monies that we've been allocating over the last couple of years to have committed funds for the purchase of this item. I think we should do everything we can to help facilitate being able to have this as a board action item next month. And if we need to identify committee members, et cetera, let's all work together to try to make that happen.
I agree. Any other comments? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Chief. Okay, the Washington County Law Enforcement Report, and we're down to board discussion. Mr. Plato.
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to bring the board up to date on a couple of legal matters. The first is involving the Salem Springs so-called centerpiece in the Urban Service District. As the board will recall, the prior Salem board in May of 2012 passed an ordinance to rezone that piece of property to general commercial. In July of 2012, petitions were filed for a referendum election seeking to have the board's rezoning set aside. Those petitions were deemed by the township to be valid, and the referendum was eventually placed on the November 2012 election. In the meantime, in August of 2012, Salem Springs filed a lawsuit seeking an injunction to prevent the election from going forward. The Washtenaw Circuit Court denied their request. They appealed it to the Court of Appeals and ultimately to the Supreme Court. And while the Supreme Court thought some of their arguments may have merit, they did not grant them the right for an injunction and allowed the election to proceed. In the November election then, the Salem voters voted against the rezoning and reversed the prior board's rezoning to general commercial. And then in March of 2013, this new board, the current board, passed an ordinance to rezone that piece of property to residential office park, or ROP. In the meantime, in April of last year, Salem Springs had filed a motion for summary disposition, again seeking to have the election deemed invalid on a legal basis. There was oral arguments were held in April of last year, and now 14 months later, we have just received an opinion from Judge Conner in the Circuit Court, which he has granted Salem Springs' motion and has held that the referendum election was in fact invalid. The basis for that was that the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act requires that the petitions for the referendum have to be filed within 30 days of the date the township publishes a notice of adoption of the ordinance. The notice of adoption, the court held, was published on March 20th of 2012, and the petitions for the referendum were not filed until July 12th, so more than 30 days later. So on that basis, Judge Conner has ruled that the petitions were late, and therefore the referendum election was invalid and is basically of no further force in effect. So if the board has any questions on that, I distributed a copy of the opinion to the board for your review.
So Ed, what does this do to what we did to rezone it to the ROP?
The residential office park, in my opinion, does not do anything to that. I thought while we were waiting, as I told the board in the past, I think that this the Salem Springs motion was kind of a moot point, because no matter what happened, they set the election aside, but they didn't set it aside. In the meantime, this board has rezoned that property to residential office park. And regardless of the outcome of the pending litigation and the court's ruling, that rezoning by this board has not been set aside. So it remains rezoned as residential office park.
But we're not, the problem is if they're forcing that or going to challenge that. That's you know, we did, it's office park, we rezoned it to match the master plan. That's what the master plan calls for that. But the problem now is if they're going to challenge that.
They have said they were going to challenge it, and in fact, they filed a motion last year to amend their complaint, to file a second amended complaint to directly challenge the rezoning to ROP. The parties basically stipulated, rather than fight the proposed amendment, to allow them to file an amended complaint. An order was entered. No, an order was not entered. The stipulated order was agreed to, but for whatever reason, they never entered the order allowing them to file the amended complaint, and the amended complaint was never filed with the court. So I'm not sure why they didn't do that, but there's certainly nothing stopping them from proceeding now to go ahead and do that. But that's where it stands. So at this point, the only issues that are in the pending litigation have all been resolved. So unless they file something new or some amendment, the current litigation is basically over.
Waiting for the next. And then also just to make an announcement for those of you that didn't know, but we have been talking, or the Planning Commission, as far as the Johnson Control property was purchased by them. There will be a public hearing here Monday night at 7:30 on the Johnson Control property that they have purchased. And their proposal is putting residential over there. They've had a somewhat of a plan that they showed to the Planning Commission at their past meeting. So we're seeing what's going to happen with that, which will be Monday night at 7:30 to let everybody know. So we are continuing to work with the developer over there, and hopefully, can come together where whatever is developed over there is nice to benefit Salem Township, and that's what our ultimate goal is, without costing all kinds of legal fees and attorneys and court dates. So. Okay, on the next issue, Mr. Plato, and again, this is stuff that, again, whatever, this is new to me, being a new supervisor for over a year. And I believe this is important a lot of times we go into closed session and talk about this, but since there's no strategy or anything, I think it's good for the public to hear this out in the open of what's facing us, and that's why we're doing it this way.
That's correct. And the opinion that was rendered by the judge is obviously a public opinion, and the new lawsuit that I'm going to refer to now is also a public document that's available from the court. So we're not disclosing anything we shouldn't be disclosing in these discussions. The other thing I want to bring the board's attention as I've distributed is the township was served yesterday with a new lawsuit that was filed by Mr. Ed Signer, Salem Township firefighter. It's a rather lengthy complaint, but just to very briefly, it appears that Mr. Signer's, the thrust of his complaint is that he filed an EEOC, an Equal Opportunity and Employment claim, back in 2010. That was ultimately dismissed by the EEOC. But he's now claiming that his application, the fact that it wasn't considered by the prior board to become the fire chief, was retaliatory for his filing that prior EEOC claim, and he's claiming various other acts of retaliation also. But that's kind of it in a nutshell. He's named the township as defendants, and 5 of the 7 prior board members and also Chief Rockwell are individual defendants in the lawsuit.
Hey, is he still a fireman?
Yes.
You already just pay him off.
Okay, any other questions, board members?
Just a comment, so on this latest lawsuit from Mr. Signer, then this will be referred to our insurance company for representation, and they'll proceed with
That's correct.
responding to the court and taking care of business on us. Is there any directive that we need to give you regarding the first matter you shared with us, or is that?
The only issue in the first matter is that there was a proposed order that was filed that I intend to file an objection to, because I think their proposed order does not properly incorporate the terms of the court's written opinion. So I'm going to file an objection to that, which will require scheduling for hearing in front of Judge Connors. He can make a ruling on whether their order is proper or not, or what type of order he's going to enter.
It will be a good day when all the lawsuits have been settled from prior years, because we certainly don't want to create any new ones. So it'll be a good day. We'll maybe have a big party that night when it's all done. Okay, time for public comment. Sorry, John, I didn't see it.
Yes, thank you. I see in light of your transparency and the new board, you have a new transparent podium here.
No, I don't even know where that came from.
Well, my comments are to the fire department and its new truck. One of the cost factors of that truck is the modifications that are needed to make from the standard truck. So So if you have those modifications, they're gonna cost us something, and it may not only cost us something, but we also be giving up something. In respect to the fire hall where we have the trucks, in the future, you're gonna want trucks. And I think it's best to measure whether or not the cost of modification isn't worthwhile putting that kind of money into the hall and getting a standard size truck. And I didn't hear that as part of the presentation. I think it needs to be delved into before you jump into a $400,000 or $500,000 truck, which is fine, except when you confine yourself to that size, you're giving up some things, I think, in the system. So it's just a caution. Thank you.
I have the same question really, is what garage do you have big enough to store that truck, to park that truck?
So that would be a replacement for our existing aged tanker. That would be one-for-one replacement, sir.
And it'll fit in?
Yes, sir.
It'll
That's
fit in
what
the
it's,
same space?
yep, that's what it's designed for.
Now, just to answer, or if you can answer the question, I thought we got past this. There was rumored or whatever that we had to pay a lot more money for a truck because it wouldn't fit in that building. But I thought we came to the understanding that there are trucks out there that will fit in that bay, that we don't have to pay an extremely amount of money for standard trucks that are out there.
Correct.
Right, okay. Because that's what I had thought.
Why don't you just lengthen the bays?
Yeah.
Couldn't cost that much money.
In this paper that we got, the proposed laws for the park that was supposed to be open to everybody, et cetera, it says no motorized vehicles. Do you really understand that that means it's not handicap accessible? A lot of wheelchairs come with little motors on, and a lot of wheelchairs have motors on them that have oxygen and all that stuff. So you can't just carte blanche say that.
Okay. So it would include that.
We include, it might be just a typo, but we had talked about that, and we did, it will say
Well,
wheel-
the
wheel-
presentation didn't say
wheelchairs.
that.
Yeah, somehow I think we got.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Did I miss the meeting when you gave carte blanche to the land preservation people to do all this? To make all of this
Yeah.
property?
Yeah. You must have.
I must have,
Yeah.
and I don't think I missed any yet.
Okay, anybody else? All right, then we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody, for coming tonight, and enjoy the summer.